No one could remember exactly when the dark man arrived in Hickory. Some say it was a few days, others claim months, but everyone agreed it was sometime before Beatrice McLean found her miracle cure for her hip spur. Everyone knew he lived out by the edge of town, but no one knew the exact address. He was the kind of man who could show up and you'd feel like he'd always been there, and when he left, no one would remember he'd been there at all. No one quite knew what to make of it when Beatrice waltzed down Main Street dancing that three-step movement. Some thought she'd gone insane. Others felt she'd found Jesus. But there could be no denying that she was happier than she'd ever been. "I ain't got no pain," she proclaimed to all who would hear. "Jebediah's miracle potion done took it away." And off she went in that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 step. Odd people were plentiful in small towns like Hickory. Beatrice only made the buzz around the chessboard in the Black Hawk Tavern for 2 days before she had been replaced with more pressing concerns. There was a snowstorm brewing, a real big one. Henry Wallace had a date that night with Naomi Beckett. They had known each other from high school, and they'd been the only people their age to remain in Hickory. It was inevitable that they'd be forced to find each other, although it did take them a decade to do so. By that time, Naomi had been through a real wrecker of a marriage, had pumped out a kid, and had been on her way toward the single mother graveyard. In small towns, old women don't have much to do. Beatrice had gotten together with some of her pals, Carla Andrews and Amanda Fuller, and they had discussed the issue of what to do with poor Naomi Beckett and her son Lance. Now, Lance was quite the handful, and that was putting it gently. The boy was short for his age, could barely talk, and had a rather unhealthy obsession with matches. Naomi was 29 years old, Henry was 28. And that was all the math that the old Crohn's group needed to hear. After the hints were issued, Henry finally capitulated and asked Naomi out. Carla offered to babysit Lance, and the deal was brokered. Then the storm came. It hit while Naomi and Henry were still in Oakdale, a town 23 miles away. Oakdale was almost the same size as Hickory, but held one advantage over its cousin: the Wilkin movie theater. It only played one movie a day, and it was always a year after it had already been released on DVD, but no one minded much. It beat driving all the way into the city. The snow meant that Naomi and Henry were stuck in Oakdale while Carla was stuck with Lance back in Hickory. Carla wasn't old, but she wasn't a spring chicken neither. In 3 years, she qualified for Social Security. Lance was 7. He had enough energy to run her into the ground threefold, and he used the opportunity afforded him by the snowstorm to do just that. Carla had already hidden all the matches from her home, but she hadn't counted on the power going out when the snow took down a power line. More to the point, it took down the old pine tree on 2nd Avenue, and then the tree took down the power line. Normally it wouldn't be a problem, but because it was winter and Lance was a young'un, it meant that Carla had to light a fire to keep the house warm. Lance watched the flames flicker with rapt attention. Carla made sure he stayed well away from the pit, but it was getting quite late. It had already been pitch black due to the storm well before the sun had set, and with only the fire to provide its seductive light, Carla's mind drooped into a stupor. She fell asleep on the couch and didn't wake until she heard Lance scream in pain. He had opened the fireplace door and had grabbed one of the burning logs. Carla pulled him away from the fire. She used the tongs next to the fireplace to push the log back in. It wouldn't do for the house to burn down now, would it? Then she rushed Lance to the bathroom. Under other circumstances, she would have put his hands right under the cold water in the sink, but she didn't do that this time. For you see, just the other day, Carla had been walking down the sidewalk when she hit an icy patch. Her legs shot out from her, and she'd fallen square on her tailbone. When she landed, she knew she'd broken the bone. She cried and raged, but there was no one nearby, except the dark man. He'd run over and helped her to her feet, and then said, "Try some of this. Is the pain gone? I knew it would be. Say, would you like some more of that? I think I could sell you this 20-ounce bottle for, let's say, $30. Sound fair?" She had bought 3 bottles, and there in the bathroom, she let Lance take a sip. His scream stopped instantly. His fingers still blistered up, and Carla knew that Naomi would not be pleased. She also knew that Jebediah's miracle potion must wear off sometime, but the thing was, it had been over 30 hours since she had fallen on the icy steps, and she still felt no pain. She'd only taken 1 sip, and it had lasted that long. Naomi and Henry arrived early the next day, following the snowplow into town. Lance was playing outside wearing his winter gear, and that included gloves. Naomi wouldn't know Lance had burned himself until she prepared his bath for him that evening, and by then, it was too late for her to think something had occurred at Carla's house.